Hi guys, how are you? And welcome back to my channel. And first of all, thank you very much to the well over 3,000 of you that in the last day have responded to my last video. So I'm very, very grateful and very, very humble. Humble, I should say, that so many of you continue to support what I do in these very uh, in this very humble little channel that I've got coming from my office at home. So, and I'm feeling so happy. I've decided that I'm going to wear my favourite Hawaiian shirt. So, add a bit of colour to a rather drab sort of uniform that I usually wear. So I just wanted to say thank you to Mike and Kim for responding, and all I can say is continue the great work. Your last videos, well, they're always fantastic, but the last few videos that you have produced with the green screen, I absolutely love. And without doing a review of any particular video, you're certainly hitting the nail on the head. And I think, especially what Mike said about leaders of the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, there isn't any. And I was certainly one of those people that said that such a broad church as we have in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community cannot be embodied by one person or a group of people, because that would be essentially a rerun of Watchtower, and we know how that goes. So I completely concur with you. But individuals speaking of their own experiences and their own findings and their own worldview, I guess, adding to the tapestry that makes up the ex Jehovah's Witness diaspora that is spread out all over the world. So I certainly agree with you on that, and also the quality of the leaks that are given to you to both of you, Mike and Kim. They're world class. So thank you very much. And for those of you on this channel that don't follow Mike and Kim, you really should, because they are amazing. And not only do I consider them to be friends, but they're certainly a great inspiration to me, and I know to many other people. So thank you very much for responding to my video, and may I say, please keep up the amazing work that both of you do, and all the people that support your channel. Now, today I wanted to do a video on governing body member Mark Sanderson, and why I was so moved to do this video is because if you're not aware already, but Jehovah's Witnesses are the governing body, and Mark Sanderson clearly indicates that it is the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses that decide the hour requirement for the commitments, to put it that way, for their public ministry. Now, I just want to say this, like, my family is and was, past tense for myself, are very active in the ministry, and we're very committed to fulfilling our obligations when it came to the hour requirements, the KPIs of being a Jehovah's Witness. Now, at the time, the reasoning that was put forward is why they gave you the hours is that this was about indicating the commitment that you were willing to dedicate to do God's will, and also dedicate to focusing on spiritual things and following the direction of the organisation. But the hours themselves were non-negotiable. Okay? If you committed to being a regular pioneer, and at the time when I was in, they were 90 hours a month, auxiliary pioneers were 60 hours a month, and special pioneers, I think, were 130. It might even be more, but certainly in that 130 plus hours a month. And that was a huge commitment. Now, what took me, and it shouldn't be, but what took me by surprise by Mark Sanderson, and he sort of built up to this crescendo where he spoke about, it was a little bit sort of wag the dog, the cart before the horse. Most of the time we've got the need, I suppose, for the rank and file to follow the lead of the governing body, even if it doesn't make sense from a human standpoint. That kind of reasoning that mere mortals couldn't understand the direction that, Watchtower is going in. But you know what? If you stay with the process, at the end it will all be revealed. But in Mark Sanderson's latest I suppose, update, put it that way, on the hour requirements, he seems to indicate it's the other way around, that the difficulties that faithful Jehovah's Witnesses are facing in terms of their obligations to the KPIs, to the hour requirements to be a auxiliary pioneer, a regular pioneer, special pioneer, that this is becoming very difficult, and so the governing body is responding. Now, as I said, under normal circumstances, that is the way that management should operate. Management should be aware of what's going on the shop floor, so to speak, and that feedback is being sent up the line to management and those in the leadership position, and so they're able to respond. But as we know historically, that, and same with the sale of the Kingdom Halls and the online platform and all these major things, that was not driven by those on the shop floor, to put it that way. Nobody said to the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, I'll tell you what, after spending 10, 15, 20, 30 years in our own Kingdom Hall, which we paid for and built in our local neighbourhoods and areas, which was convenient for us to meet in, because previously we didn't have a Kingdom Hall in our area. What we think you should do is sell off the local Kingdom Hall and then make us travel an hour each way to get to the Kingdom Hall. Nobody ever said that to them. Okay, no one ever said that all the work and the effort and the money that was put in to the local Kingdom Halls should just disappear into the ether. Nobody said that. When it came to the online, I suppose, direction that Watchtower's gone in, there was people, then I know that as fact, people that were asking that, for instance, smartphones and so forth could be used even at the Kingdom Hall. And I remember there was a Kingdom Ministry in Australia that dealt with that particular issue, and the answer was no. It was only when Watchtower needed the money, Watchtower needed to consolidate, Watchtower needed to change its business model, that's when they decided that they were going to consolidate down the Kingdom Halls, liquefy the actual Kingdom Halls, get the cash, and that disappears to consolidate revenue, and so forth. But when it comes to this, the preaching, when it comes to this hour requirement, the KPIs, it's very clear that Jehovah's Witnesses They are a corporation masquerading as a religion. Okay, so the figures are basically their gods. They need to have figures being shown, outgoing, ingoing, distribution of their publications, and also all activity on the Gantt charts. Now, when it comes to the issue of your, I suppose, commitment to pioneering, this is what I find really interesting about what Mark Sanderson has said. He spoke about how people had always wanted to pioneer, but they just weren't able to. Now, they've reduced down the hours for auxiliary pioneers right down to 30 hours a month, and also during the special month of activity, I should say, in April, which was always a big time for Jehovah's Witnesses. They're saying that the publishers are able to put in their slip to say we would like to auxiliary pioneer, and that is the hour requirement for that is 15 hours. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. One is that the rank and file are exhausted, and financially they're finding it very difficult to, without family and friends supporting them, to be able to spend full time going door to door and not being able to actually work. And of course, if Jehovah's Witnesses had listened to the governing body, well, they wouldn't be highly qualified. And may I just say, for those who say, oh yes, but I'm a Jehovah's Witness and I'm an accountant, or I'm a Jehovah's Witness and I'm a lawyer, and I'm a Jehovah's Witness and I'm a doctor, my answer to you is, well, why are you so disobedient? Okay, if you were not a Jehovah's Witness when you got your qualifications, well, you've won the jackpot. But if you're an active Jehovah's Witness and then you went and got your qualifications in terms of college or university, you're disobedient. Because that's not on the cards for loyal, faithful Jehovah's Witnesses. So far as they're concerned, that's pretty much ill-gotten gains. So for loyal Jehovah's Witnesses who didn't get an education, okay, got the very bare education possible, depending on what country that you're in, and then entered into pioneering, there's no chance in the world that a person's going to have the qualifications to earn themselves any decent money. So instead of Jehovah's Witnesses allowing the governing body to allow its policies, which is that you need to sacrifice everything for the organisation, maybe for your faith, and then realising that the pool of people that are able or willing basically to live in poverty or to be completely subsidised by other members of their family that aren't doing the right thing by working full time, they can't cope with this. So we have this basically pinning phony rewards or medals, I should say, phony medals on people's chest. Okay, now Mark Sanderson said, which is beyond belief, really, that people have been wanting to pioneer for years and they haven't, and now they've got the reduction of hours down to 15 hours a month, for instance, during April, and the greatly reduced hours for auxiliary pioneers and also regular pioneers. I think regular pioneers are down to 50 hours a month. Now, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, to have responsibilities in the congregation, I had the responsibility of working in the literature department. It was expected. Doesn't mean you always got it, but they certainly wanted you. The elders would speak to us and say that they expected you to be getting at least 20 hours a month. Okay, and that was basically every weekend you had to be out to reach those KPIs. And certainly, that's what we thought was the right thing to do. But this is the point. When you're doing 20 hours a month or near on that, to keep your privileges in the congregation, if you're a man, nobody thought to themselves, well, actually, you know what? I'm auxiliary pioneering now. No. And if you were auxiliary pioneering, which I did intermittently, it was 60 hours a month. I didn't think to myself, well, you know what? I'm a regular pioneer, or I'm almost a special pioneer. Okay, I didn't think that. Why? Because the groupthink was that the hours indicated your station. Okay, they told you that 60 hours meant to God that you were a auxiliary pioneer, or 90 hours a month. I think if my memory serves me correct, 90 hours a month to be a regular pioneer. Okay. Now, when Mark Sanderson says, and I remember having long discussions with former Jehovah's Witnesses when I was on the Sixth Greens program out of the US, is if you weren't able to get, let's just say, 60 hours a month, and you wanted to be a auxiliary pioneer, or 90 hours a month, you couldn't get 90 hours a month. You wish more than anything to be able to do 90 hours a month, and you couldn't do it. By reducing the hours down to whatever they are now, whether you're auxiliary pioneering with only 15 hours a month instead of 60, the fact is that the responsibility, the commitment, the godly sanctioned KPI was the reason why you couldn't pioneer. Okay? So when Mark Sanderson said people have wanted to pioneer what they wanted to do, they were brainwashed that you needed to spend 3 days a week, minimum 3 days a week as an auxiliary pioneer, out in the ministry. Or you had to spend 4 days or 5 out of the 7 days to be a regular pioneer. Everybody knew that. It was the commitment, it was the discipline, it was the sacrifice for Jehovah. Now, the fact of the matter is that by any standard over the last, whatever it's been since I've had pioneers, let's just say the last 60 years, is the point of this godly sanctioned KPIs was about the sacrifice. Okay? It was the sacrifice. The earnest prayer, apparently, to be able to give this godly sanctioned KPI, this sacrifice to God, that's what God expected. Now, to me, this is the most desperate thing they have ever done when it comes to their apparent sacred worship to their God Jehovah. Now, why? Is when you reduce down these titles, these positions, special pioneer, people say, oh, my son, he's a regular pioneer. His wife they're both they're special pioneers. They're Gilead graduates. Okay? They're missionaries. Now, once you dilute down In a sense, the suffering, when you dilute down the sacrifice, when you dilute down the aura around apparently giving this all up for God, and you're just wanting people to be able to say, oh, I pioneer. I'm a special pioneer. I'm a regular pioneer. It has no value. And this just shows the desperate state that Jehovah's Witnesses are in. They act as an organisation. They need to have figures. They need to have increases. So what's happened is you have a massive decrease of special, regular pioneers and auxiliary pioneers, okay? When you drop down the hour requirements dramatically, then you turn around and say, oh my goodness, look how we're being blessed. Jehovah is blessing us because we've had a 10%, 20%, 50% increase, consecutive peak of publishers. But what is the baseline of this growth? Now, the point is that when I was raised growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, is that the pioneers that I knew, they had literally no money. Okay? And to be honest, they really only survived because family members or other witnesses would support them. Okay? So it was never easy whatsoever to be able to feed, clothe themselves, put petrol or gas in their car, and to look after themselves. Okay, anybody that was an active Jehovah's Witness that had responsibilities clearly knew that there was very generous people, hopefully there was generous people in the congregation to support the pioneers materially. Okay, it was never easy. It was never easy for people like that. Now, I remember there was a couple of pioneers, very lovely people, in my old congregation in Geelong, in Victoria. Absolutely gorgeous people, right? But they didn't have $2 to their name. Okay, they were happy, but it was a real, genuine suffering. And I respect that. I really do. They lived in a caravan and drove an exceptionally modest car, very old. Okay, and I respected them, but it was a dedication and a suffering for their faith. Now, I don't agree with it now, but I respect that. But when Sanderson says, oh, look, there's these people that have wanted to and so forth, this is rubbish. Watchtower has never cared and has never they have never provided for the people that were convinced that they should be doing what was necessary. It was up to the families of those going out in the ministry. It was the local congregation and the local elders and ministerial servants to be aware of people's financial situation. If you were a pioneer and you're in a congregation that was a dark congregation, they talked about spiritually dark congregations who were not generous at all, you're in a world of trouble. Okay? If there wasn't, ones with money that would privately give money to the pioneers and look after them and so forth. No, my family was very, very generous in that regard, and that's a good thing. But Watchtower never did it. Watchtower set the standards, they set the KPIs, and then everybody else had to problem solve. And I know a couple of special pioneers, I think they're still on the circuit actually, in Australia, and when I was a witness, I knew them very, very well. And I knew as fact that the assignments that they had in regional Australia drained them of their finances, their families' finances. In actual fact, they could not even afford for the petrol or the gas to really do the territory that they were assigned in outback Australia. And the Australian Bethel said, well, we can only give you X amount. You're already at the allowable rate. And they were special pioneers, but it was meant to be the local congregations or the local brothers, witnesses, that were meant to be supplying the rest. Well, people didn't have money to give them. So they spent their own money and their families spent their own money. Now, that was all on the hush-hush. So when I see Mark Sanderson talking about people have always wanted to pioneer and now they can, I'm sorry, this is just tokenism even for Jehovah's Witnesses. It is just tokenism to say and to look back on all of the Jehovah's Witnesses who literally were going out in their cars. And I remember there were stories of people swapping literature for food or for this or for that. Well, how was it easy for those people? Well, it wasn't. So when I see Mark Sanderson talking about how the governing body is responding to the needs, I see the hypocrisy of that. They never cared during the 1930s. They never cared during all the other crises that occurred after the Second World War. They never cared during the recessions that we've had. The witnessing work must go on. This is just a desperate ploy for people. And I also feel very sorry for all of the Jehovah's Witnesses and former Jehovah's Witnesses who spent their life pioneering and doing what they were doing, end up in financial difficulties, when the reality is that the number, the KPI that was put forward, the 60 hours, the 90 hours, the 130 hours a month work, which clearly they are, is just arbitrary numbers. But those arbitrary numbers destroyed people's lives, put families under tremendous pressure to support somebody, to follow this ideal that was put to them, that was simply a man-made set of KPIs. And it's very sad, because at the end of the day, as someone said, I wish I said it, but it wasn't, it's not me. What does God do with all the hours? You know, at the end of the service year, I don't think witnesses do this anymore, but they used to have there'd be a meeting thing, and they would look through this meeting. We'd look through the service year, and Japan had consecutive peaks of publishers, or Australia did this, and the United States such and such, and Botswana so many people were baptized, and all of that. And the question was, as another activist said, what does God do with all those hours? And the fact is, God doesn't do anything with them. That is a human construct. That is just keeping people, well, obviously, that was the business model. And now that they're no longer putting forward the need for the distribution of their printed publications anymore, there's no need for that. There's no need for people to pound the pavement. There actually is no need. So for them, organisationally, they need to rein back in the prickly parts of the organisation and organisational procedure to try to keep members. Now, it was only probably recently that I saw, after the COVID restrictions here in Australia started to wane, or have waned, I should say, and I was going to work, and there at one of the transit terminals, there was two stands of Jehovah's Witnesses, one on one end, one on the other, with the cart, and that's fine. They were standing there, very politely standing. They weren't talking to anybody, and I would see them regularly there, and I never saw anybody ever talking to them. I'm not saying they didn't, but there was no interaction. That's fine. And I'm thinking, but they're counting that time. So now they're standing beside the carts, not talking to anybody, respectfully and politely standing there, which is fine. But they're counting this time. Where in the past, the idea of just standing in one spot, not talking to anybody, they would say that's not a productive ministry. Okay, you needed to be out there. As I say, we're not knocking on doors, we're trying to find people. Now, that is all gone by the wayside. So to me, it certainly brings back a lot of memories when it comes to the hour chase. And I remember coming up to the month of April, they used to, certainly in a number of congregations here in Australia, I'm not sure where you are, where they did that, but they would actually have a calendar for you, and they would tell you how many hours you needed to get, how many long weekends there was in the month of April, and how you could get your hours in, and plan it all out just to get your hours. Okay, so when you think now down to 15 hours, and you can call yourself a auxiliary pioneer, this is a joke. Because the fact is, if that's the case, at 15 hours, you are a auxiliary pioneer always. Or at 50 or 60 hours, you're a regular pioneer, whatever the new requirements are. It is simply nothing more than fabrication of men, but the consequences of this, the life-changing consequences, have had far-reaching impacts on hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions. So I'd love to hear your feedback on your experience pioneering, what you went through, what you had to go through. Did you sell a car, a house, a home, or whatever it was? I know the poor people that sold homes, and I actually know people that sold homes prior to 1975, and they were going to pioneer for that year or the other around that time, so that they could pioneer and be going into the new system, pioneering. Of course, they didn't go into paradise. We're still in this world, and I'm pretty sure that watchtowers, I suppose, development, to put it that way, their production on the online space is indicating that they are doing everything to build themselves a sustainable business model online that doesn't need the pull factor of the end around the corner to draw people in. And of course, viewership is more important to them than anything, or liking and subscribing, as we say on YouTube. But anyway, that's my take on things. Mark Sanderson, and being able to pioneer when you always could pioneer, because hours are irrelevant to God, and your service is individual, whatever that may be. You're meant to give from the heart, and privately. Certainly putting in applications to be able to preach from God's word, the Bible, or profess your Christianity to others, apparently, because I don't think you need committees of men to approve of you to do that. That's something between you and God, if you believe that way. So I hope to hear from you, your experiences on how you feel about the reduction of hours, and also your experience of your sacrifice that was made, and the great thing that was made of those KPIs. So thank you very much, and love to hear from you. And once again, thank you for your support. And I hope that this is encouraging. I hope that it's thought provoking, and encourages you to tell your own experiences. So from my family to yours, God bless you, and I will speak to you very soon. I'm Matt Christopher. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much.